Hello Internet, I'm the Disney Brain and welcome to another edition of The Top. Last week, we took a look at the top 10 best Disney Channel shows, and, just to clarify, the reason that shows like Recess or Sabrina the Teenage Witch didn't make the list is because they're ABC shows. They're part of the Disney conglomerate, but not technically Disney Channel shows. So, we finally arrived at the dark side of Disney Channel. You may be asking, why a top 10 best and a top 5 worst? Well, I always try to be twice as positive in life. And, again, this list is mostly opinion, so it bears repeating that the same rules apply here. Let's keep the flame wars to a minimum. If you've got a show to defend, throw down a respectful comment and let's discuss. Agreed? Awesome. Let's get started.
Get back to work! Aw, man. Here we go. We're leaving this city behind right now.
What's that? We get to start the list off with a pointless and terrible spin-off show? It must be my friggin' birthday. This show is everything you don't want out of a show that's supposed to be funny. It's completely unbearable. Just take a look at the characters for a second. We've got a tiny little Asian girl. Oh, let me guess. She's going to be the smart one, just like Ravi, the only other Asian in the show. Wow. Talk about challenging stereotypes. And what's with Gladys? Everything she says is creepy to the point of disturbing. I would definitely double check her credentials because I wouldn't trust her looking after anyone's kids. The characters would already be a deal breaker for me, but to make matters worse, they're at a camp. There has literally only been one show ever about a camp that has ever been any good. And only one! I'm not sure why Disney Channel loves doing spin-off shows, but they have almost always been disappointing. It's completely forgettable with no new, interesting, or challenging ideas, and I would absolutely be shocked if it lasted more than 2 seasons. A fitting start at number 5.
Kiki Walker.
This show wouldn't be memorable enough to even make this list if not for one horrific defining principle. If a person in your life doesn't meet the expectations of a pair of children, all you have to do is throw a couple dollars to a complete stranger and suddenly your problems go away because said person gets replaced? This is the absolute worst idea Disney Channel has ever tried to pawn off on us because it essentially implies that if you have a problem with someone, you can basically order the PG version of a hit on them and get rid of them completely. It's pretty disturbing, not to mention that it teaches its viewership not to solve their problems, but avoid them. A terrible, horrible, no good, very bad lesson that I couldn't be more against. And even if this wasn't such a glaring issue, it's still bland and predictable as far as TV shows go. There's a decent football movie with the same title, just watch that instead. A pretty low score for number 4.
I know it sounds crazy, but time doesn't faze me.
I don't mean to come down on more recent Disney Channel shows, especially since 2 of the ongoing shows are legitimately great. But this one is very, very bad. Let's break it down. A devil-may-care tough girl paired with an energetic and flippant best friend? We already had that. All those annoying redhead characters nobody really likes? Oh look, there's 2 of them here. A pair of side characters with flat personalities? Okay, let's be honest, that's everywhere. This show does absolutely nothing new with its characters, which for me is worse than some shows that try new things and fail. Phil of the Future, while implausible scientifically, still doesn't spit on the face of temporal mechanics like this show does. And, as a man who loves me his science, it's particularly offensive that something like this exists. Every single potentially interesting idea they make up with time travel is just that, made up, as in there's no realm of reality where it can exist, unless Neil deGrasse Tyson himself tells me otherwise. I realize that suspension of disbelief is somewhat necessary to fully engage in entertainment medium such as this, but for me, this show is just insulting my intelligence, not complimenting it. And since I literally named this channel after the part of the body responsible for intelligence, it shouldn't surprise anyone that I would take offense to something like that. If you enjoy it, that's fine. But for me, it's just number 3.
I'm right there with you.
Oh yes, you all saw this coming. The grand monarch that rules over every feeling of disdain I've ever felt towards this network, even though I usually love Disney Channel. The idea of hiring Debbie Ryan to take care of anyone's kids, let alone celebrity kids, is enough of a stretch. But it doesn't help that nearly every actor on this show feels like they're phoning it in. Peyton List plays generic blonde girl number 576, Karan Brar plays a completely offensive racial stereotype, Sky Jackson plays the only character TV producers think black girls can play, that being sassy and attitude driven, and Cameron Boyce, well, he just plays another kid, really. You'll notice most of these shows on this list don't really have a point or an interesting plausible idea to latch on to, in addition to characters I can't really stand, and all that's amplified here. The reason I love The Sweet Life is because they take an interesting idea and make it funny with colorful, memorable characters. The reason I love Liv and Maddie is because, well, yes, but also because the family works off each other so well and they seem believable. This show has none of that. And I know that's debatable, and I'm sure some of you guys have your own ideas about it, whether you're a fan of the show or not, so be sure to share them. But for me, this is one of the worst shows I've seen recently, Disney Channel or otherwise, and I don't think I've facepalmed so many times in the course of a 22-minute show. But absolutely nothing compares to the true terror that is number one. But before we get to that, just kidding, please don't crucify me. Moving on.
Yeah! Yeah! What's up? Go, 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 go! Listen now. Here we go.
No. Why did somebody think it would be a great idea to make a show that revolves around the single most annoying character from a Disney Channel classic? Just listen to this premise. So the President of the United States just so happens to wander into the Baxter family's neck of the woods, and he just so happens to try a dish by Mr. Baxter, who just so happens to be making his favorite dish. So, of course, without a real interview or screening or even conflict at all, Corey and his dad abandon Mrs. Baxter in San Fran while they literally move into the White House. The ridiculous way they justify this show existing would be bad enough, but then, oh god, but then we get to our main character. My lord, he acts like what a bunch of highbrow TV executives just assume black kids act like. It's Disney Channel almost going out of its way to encourage racial stereotypes. And why is it that the black families featured on Disney Channel always have some sort of strange quirk defining their shows, like a psychic daughter, or living with the president, or being a family full of spies, while the white families usually lead relatively realistic lives? Just something to think about. At the end of the day, this is another example of a terrible spin-off show, which usually don't work because the show makers just assume that people will love the show as much as the original. But they forget about the elements that make the original shows good. Disney Channel at its best can be original, inventive, engaging, and really make you think as well as feel. But at its basement, shows like these without a bone of creativity or challenging thought to be found. And I get it, some of you love Corey, fine. But for me, the show he starred in represents everything that's wrong with a television station I have watched and loved for over a decade. But that doesn't and never will keep me from calling it out when it screws up royally. Whew. Relax guys, we've made it through. And before the potential flame I get for this video, remember something. We all have our likes and dislikes. We all have different reasons for loving or despising a show. But if you try to understand my perspective behind this list, I promise that even if you don't necessarily agree with me, I'll try to understand yours. That is, after all, what this channel is really all about. Inspiring conversation and useful dialogue regarding one of my favorite topics on Disney Channel. Throw down your thoughts and let's discuss. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, help me out with the likes, subs, and share it all over social media. And if you've got a suggestion for an upcoming video, throw it on a comment about that too. This Friday brings us Girl Meets Money, so go watch that and come back for the episode review. Until then...